The question that froze the gravy. Thanksgiving has a smell. It's not just turkey. It's butter browning too fast, onions sweating in a pan, canned cranberry sauce sliding out with that wet flop sound everyone pretends not to hear. It's the smell of obligation, of tradition, of things left unsaid because there's a tablecloth between you and the truth. That year the smell was heavier, thicker, like the air itself knew what was coming. I remember wiping my hands on a dish towel and telling myself, just get through dinner. Just smiles. Just polite laughter. Just one day where nothing explodes. I should have known better. We were hosting for the first time since moving into the house. A classic American colonial on Maple Drive. White siding, black shutters, a porch that made people assume we were doing better than we actually were. Hosting felt like proof that we had finally arrived somewhere stable. Somewhere grown up. My husband, Mark, was already pouring drinks. He loved playing host, loved the illusion of control. He stood near the kitchen island, bourbon bottle tilted just right, laughing a little too loudly at something my brother-in-law had said. I watched him from across the room and felt that familiar, dull ache in my chest. The one that had been there for months. The one I kept pushing down because life was busy, because we were married, because problems didn't exist if you didn't name them. The doorbell rang again. More family, more noise, more eyes. By the time everyone arrived, the house was full in that chaotic, distinctly American way. Football murmuring from the TV, coats piled on the bed upstairs, someone already arguing about politics in the living room even though I had explicitly asked them not to. I brought out appetizers, cheese board, deviled eggs, things that look easy but take way too much effort. People complimented me. I smiled. My face hurt from smiling. Mark caught my eye and raised his glass. To family, he said. To family, everyone echoed. If I'd known what was coming, I would have choked on the word. Dinner was almost perfect. The turkey was moist. The gravy didn't break. My mother-in-law even restrained herself from rearranging my table settings, which felt like a small miracle. We sat around the long dining table, knees brushing, elbows bumping, everyone talking at once. I was halfway through my mashed potatoes when Mark leaned back in his chair. He had that look. The casual one. The I'm about to say something but I don't realize it's a grenade look. So, he said, glancing around the table, fork still in his hand. I was looking over some old numbers the other day. My stomach tightened. I set my fork down slowly. What numbers? I asked, keeping my voice light. He shrugged. You know, stuff from before we got married. I didn't like where this was going. Not at all. My sister-in-law paused mid-chew. My father-in-law reached for more gravy. Someone laughed awkwardly, assuming this was harmless. Mark looked at me then, really looked, and said, in the most conversational tone imaginable, "Why haven't we paid back that $50,000 yet?" The table went silent. Not quiet. Silent. No forks clinking. No football commentary drifting in. Even the kids in the other room seemed to stop yelling. $50,000. I felt the blood drain from my face so fast I thought I might faint. What? I said. He frowned slightly like I was the one being strange. The money. From your dad. The loan. Loan. I heard my father clear his throat at the far end of the table. I hadn't looked at him yet. I couldn't. Mark, I said carefully, this isn't the time. Well, it kind of is, he interrupted. We're all here. Family, right? My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. This was not alone. And he knew that. Or at least, I thought he did. 5 years earlier, my father had written me a check. $50,000. I was standing in my childhood kitchen when he handed it to me, the same kitchen where he used to pack my lunches and quiz me on spelling words. He didn't make a big deal out of it. Just slid it across the counter like it was nothing. For your future, he'd said. Use it wisely. I tried to refuse. Pride, guilt, all of it. He wouldn't hear it. It's not a loan, he said firmly. It's a gift. Don't insult me by calling it anything else. I told Mark that. I remembered the conversation vividly. We were still engaged then, sitting on the floor of our tiny apartment, eating takeout straight from the containers. My dad helped us, I said. It's a gift. Mark had nodded, smiled, pulled me close. That's amazing, he said. We're lucky. So why was he saying this now? Dad, Mark said, turning toward my father. I hope you don't think we've forgotten. My father's jaw tightened. I never asked for repayment, he said evenly. Mark blinked. Well, sure, but... No, my dad interrupted. There was no but. I gave that money to my daughter. End of story. The tension at the table was thick enough to slice. My mother stared down at her plate. My brother shifted uncomfortably. My mother-in-law's eyes flicked between Mark and me like she was watching a tennis match. Mark laughed nervously. Okay. I didn't mean anything by it. I just thought, responsibility. I stared at him. Responsibility. The word tasted bitter. Why are you bringing this up now? I asked. He hesitated. Just for a second. But I saw it. Well, he said slowly, because we're trying to be honest with each other. And with everyone. A cold realization settled in my chest. This wasn't a slip. This was intentional. After dinner, people pretended nothing had happened. They asked for pie, complimented the pumpkin cheesecake, turned the TV volume back up. But the crack was there now, running right through the center of the day. Mark avoided my eyes. I helped my mother clear dishes, my hands shaking as I stacked plates. You okay? She whispered. I nodded automatically. Fine. I was not fine. In the kitchen, Mark cornered me by the sink. You didn't have to make it awkward, he said under his breath. I laughed, sharp and humorless. I made it awkward. You could have just explained it better. I already did. Years ago. He crossed his arms. Well, maybe you weren't as clear as you thought. That was the moment something inside me shifted. Because it wasn't just about the money. It was about what he was trying to do with it. Later that night, after everyone left, after the house was quiet and the smell of Thanksgiving lingered like a ghost, I sat alone at the dining table. The same table where he'd asked the question. The same spot where everything cracked open. I pulled out my phone and opened my bank app. And then my email. And then the folder I hadn't looked at in years. Because suddenly I needed to be very, very sure of something. By the time Mark came downstairs, I already knew. And what I knew was this. That $50,000 hadn't disappeared. And neither had the truth. Following the money. I didn't sleep that night. Mark snored beside me like nothing had happened. One arm flung over the pillow where I used to tuck myself in. I lay on my back, staring at the ceiling fan as it made slow, useless circles, replaying his voice over and over. Why haven't we paid back that $50,000 yet? The way he'd said we. The way he'd looked so sure of himself. By morning I wasn't hurt anymore. I was alert. The house felt different in daylight. Less warm. Less forgiving. The Thanksgiving decorations, mini pumpkins, leaf garlands, looked like props from a play I no longer wanted to be in. Mark left early for work, kissing my cheek like always. Love you, he said. I watched him go, listening to the garage door rumble shut. Then I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. I told myself this was just to reassure myself. That I was being dramatic. That marriages had misunderstandings. But my hands were steady as I logged into our joint accounts. Too steady. The $50,000 had come in clean. I remembered that much clearly. My father had insisted on wiring it so there'd be a record. I pulled up the statements from 5 years ago. There it was. Deposit $50,000. My chest tightened, but not from relief. Because right below it were withdrawals I didn't remember authorizing. Not big chunks. Not obvious. Just steady. $5,000 here. $3,000 there. $7,000 a month later. At first glance they blended in with normal life expenses. Home improvements, investments, transfers between accounts. But I knew my own habits. And these weren't mine. I clicked deeper. Then deeper still. By noon my coffee was cold and my hands were shaking. The money hadn't gone toward our wedding. It hadn't gone toward the down payment on the house like Mark always claimed. It hadn't even gone toward us. I found the first name by accident. An unfamiliar transfer label. Just a line of text easy to miss. M. Collins Consulting. I frowned. I'd never heard of it. A quick search led to a barebones website. Generic stock photos. Corporate buzzwords. No address. No faces. But there was a phone number. And when I looked up the business registration, my stomach dropped. Registered 2 months before our wedding. Owner Mark Collins. My Mark. I felt like I was breathing underwater. I leaned back in my chair, my mind racing. He'd set up a company. A secret one. And he'd been feeding it money from my father's gift. The realization didn't hit all at once. It came in waves, each one knocking the air out of me. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a plan. I scrolled further. The account activity painted a picture I couldn't ignore. Luxury car payments routed through the business. Client dinners at restaurants I'd never been to with him. A recurring transfer that made my throat close when I read the memo line. Melissa Rent. Melissa. I whispered the name out loud like it might explain itself. It didn't. I called my best friend, Jenna. She picked up on the second ring. Hey, she said cheerfully. Still alive after hosting Thanksgiving? I think my husband stole $50,000 from me, I said. Silence. Then, okay, she said slowly. Start from the beginning. By the time I finished, my voice was hoarse. That's not just financial betrayal, Jenna said. That's calculated. I know. And the question at dinner, she added. That wasn't an accident. No, I said. It was pressure. He wanted me rattled, defensive, maybe even guilty, so I wouldn't ask my own questions. I didn't confront him right away. That surprised even me. Instead, I waited. I watched. I started noticing things I brushed off for years. Late nights he blamed on work. Business trips that never lined up with his calendar. How he always handled the finances, insisting he was better with numbers. How convenient. I played my role well. Smiled. Cooked dinner. Asked about his day. He didn't suspect a thing. That part hurt more than I expected. The following week I met my father for lunch. We sat in a quiet diner halfway between our houses, the kind of place with laminated menus and coffee cups that never emptied. He looked tired, older than I remembered. Dad, I said gently, can I ask you something? He smiled. You just did. The money you gave me, did you ever expect it back? He didn't hesitate. No, not a flicker of doubt. Did Mark ever talk to you about it? I asked. My father's expression hardened. No, he said. Should he have? I shook my head, but inside something snapped into place. That night I sat alone in the car outside our house, engine off, staring at the dark windows. I finally understood why Mark had chosen Thanksgiving. Why family? Why witnesses? He wasn't reminding me. He was laying groundwork. If the truth came out, he wanted it muddy, shared, questionable. He wanted it to look like we were irresponsible, like I owed something, like he was the reasonable one asking fair questions. I clenched my hands around the steering wheel. He had underestimated me. The next morning I printed everything. Statements, transfers, registrations. I made copies. Then I put them in a folder and slid it into my work bag, just in case. When Mark came home that evening, he was in a good mood, humming, loosening his tie. Hey, he said, want to open a bottle of wine? I looked at him and saw him clearly for the first time. Not the man I married. The man he'd been all along. Sure, I said. But first, I have a question. His smile didn't fade. Yeah. I met his eyes. Why did you start a company without telling me? There it was. The moment. He froze. Just for a fraction of a second. Enough. What company? He asked. I smiled back. The kind of smile you wear when you already know the answer. The stories men tell. Mark didn't answer right away. He set his keys on the counter carefully like he was buying time. The hum of the refrigerator filled the space between us. I watched his reflection in the microwave door, how his jaw tightened, how his shoulders squared, like he was bracing for impact. What company? He repeated slower this time. I walked past him and pulled the folder from my bag. Thump. I laid it on the kitchen island between us. This one, I said. For a moment he just stared at it. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. You went digging, he said, shaking his head. Wow. There it was. Not denial. Not confusion. Deflection. You used my father's money, I said calmly. Money you knew was a gift. You routed it through a company you hid from me. And you had the nerve to bring it up at Thanksgiving like I owed someone something. His smile faded. Lower your voice, he said. I raised an eyebrow. Or what? He exhaled sharply, rubbing his temples. You're overreacting. I felt something cold settle in my chest. The oldest trick in the book. Okay, he said, leaning against the counter, arms crossed. Let's be rational. I waited. I started the company because I wanted to build something for us, he continued. I didn't want to stress you out with risk. You hate financial uncertainty. I almost laughed. I hate being lied to, I said. It's not lying if it's for protection, he shot back. Protection. I thought of the transfers, the rent, the dinners. Who's Melissa? I asked. His eyes flicked away, just for a second, and that was all I needed. She's nobody, he said quickly. A contractor. Who you pay rent for. Office space. Monthly. In a residential building. Silence. I leaned forward, my palms flat on the counter. Try again. Mark's face hardened. You wouldn't understand, he said. You've never had to hustle. Your dad just hands you money, and suddenly you think you're entitled to question how it's used. That one hit. Not because it was true, but because it revealed exactly how he saw me. My father didn't hand you anything, I said quietly, and yet you felt comfortable taking it. He scoffed. It was sitting there. Like that explained everything. The argument spiraled the way these things always do. Sideways. Loud. Mean. He accused me of being controlling. I accused him of being deceitful. He brought up old fights, old insecurities, things I'd trusted him with and never expected to hear weaponized. At some point he said, "This is why I didn't tell you." And I realized the conversation was over. Because in his version of the story, I was the problem. That night, Mark slept on the couch. Not because I asked him to, because he needed space to rewrite the narrative in his head. I lay in bed, staring at the dark, listening to the house settle. Every creak felt louder now, like the walls themselves were eavesdropping. Around 2 a.m. my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Melissa, you don't know me, but I think we need to talk. My heart stopped. We met 2 days later. A coffee shop across town. Neutral territory. I arrived early and chose a table near the window, my back straight, my nerves buzzing. When she walked in, I recognized her immediately. Not because I'd seen her before, because she looked exactly like the kind of woman Mark would choose. Mid-30s. Polished. Confident. Expensive coat. The kind of beauty that didn't ask for permission. She spotted me and hesitated. Then she sat down. "You're his wife," she said. "Yes," I replied. "And you're not a contractor." She winced. "No," she admitted. "I'm not." She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup like it was an anchor. "He told me you knew," she said quietly. "About the company. About us." I felt a strange calm wash over me. Of course he did. Melissa talked. And talked. And with every word, the picture sharpened. They'd been together for 4 years. 4. He'd told her we were basically separated, that the marriage was for appearances, that the money was his, that he was building something new, something real. She lives off her father, he'd said about me. She wouldn't understand ambition. I didn't cry. Not then. I just listened. When she finished, she looked at me like she was waiting for something. Anger. Tears. Screaming. Instead, I smiled. "Thank you," I said. She blinked. "For what?" "For confirming what I already knew." That night, I went home and packed a bag. Not everything. Just enough. I left Mark a note on the kitchen counter. "I know everything. Don't contact me unless it's through a lawyer." Then I drove to my sister's house. As I pulled into her driveway, my phone started blowing up. Calls. Texts. Voicemails. I turned it off. For the first time in years, I slept deeply. 3 days later, Mark showed up at my sister's door. He looked different. Smaller. Desperate. "We can fix this," he said. "You're overreacting." I laughed. "No," I said. "I'm finally reacting correctly." His face darkened. "You think you can just walk away?" he snapped. "That money complicates things." I met his gaze, steady and unafraid. "You're right," I said. "It does. Just not the way he thought." When the numbers start talking, hiring a lawyer felt surreal. I'd always imagined it as something dramatic, tears, shaking hands, whispered confessions in an office that smelled like old books. Instead, it was fluorescent lights, a glass of lukewarm water, and a woman named Karen who didn't flinch once while I told her everything. She flipped through my folder slowly. Bank statements, business registrations, screenshots of transfers, Melissa's messages. When she finally looked up, her expression was almost pleased. "Well," she said, "this is refreshingly thorough." I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "So I'm not crazy," I said. She gave a small smile. "Not even close." Karen explained things in a way that stripped emotion out of it, and somehow that helped. The money from my father? Clearly documented as a gift. The secret company? Marital funds used without disclosure. The affair? Relevant, but not even the strongest part. "What you have," she said, tapping the folder, "is financial misconduct. And leverage." That word hummed in my ears. Leverage. For years, Mark had held all the cards, or so I thought. He managed the accounts, made the decisions, told me not to worry. Turns out, worry had been the only thing keeping me blind. Mark didn't stop calling. Voicemails went from apologetic to angry to strangely calm, like he'd rehearsed them. "You're letting people get into your head. We can handle this privately. You're embarrassing us." By the end of the week, Karen sent the first formal letter. Mark responded within hours. Suddenly, he wanted mediation. We met in a conference room downtown. Neutral walls. Neutral carpet. Neutral air. Mark sat across from me, hands clasped, jaw tight. He wore the same suit he always wore to impress clients. I wondered how many lies that suit had heard. "You didn't have to go nuclear," he said quietly. I looked at him like he was a stranger. "You stole from me," I replied. "And from my father." "I invested," he corrected. "With my consent?" I asked. He didn't answer. The mediator cleared her throat. "Let's focus on resolution," she said. Mark nodded, eager. "I want what's fair." I almost laughed. Here's the thing Mark didn't understand until that moment. I didn't want revenge. I wanted truth. And control. Karen laid it all out. Full financial disclosure. Immediate freezing of joint accounts. Repayment of the misused funds with interest. And my name restored to every asset he'd quietly minimized over the years. Mark's face drained of color. "That's excessive," he said. Karen tilted her head. "Compared to fraud?" Silence. The breaking point came when Karen slid one last document across the table. A forensic accounting summary. line by line, dollar by dollar, including the money Mark had spent on Melissa, rent, trips, gifts. Mark stared at it like it was written in another language. "You told me that money was gone," he said to me. I met his eyes. "It is," I said. "Just not the way you thought." He snapped then. "You think you're better than me?" he hissed. "Because your daddy bails you out?" The mediator stiffened. I stayed calm. "No," I said. "I think I trusted you. And you used that." Something in his expression cracked. For the first time he looked afraid. The settlement took weeks. But the direction was set. Mark moved out of the house. The one on Maple Drive. The one my father's money had helped secure. I visited it once alone while Mark was gone. Walked through the rooms. Touched the walls. It didn't feel like mine anymore. And that was okay. Melissa reached out again. An apology this time. "I didn't know," she said. "About the money. About everything." I believed her. But belief didn't mean obligation. I wished her well and blocked her number. Closure didn't need an audience. On a cold January morning, the divorce papers were finalized. I signed my name slowly, deliberately. When it was done, Karen shook my hand. "You handled this with remarkable restraint," she said. I smiled. "It wasn't restraint," I replied. "It was focus." That night I sat at my sister's kitchen table, a glass of wine in my hand, snow falling softly outside. My phone buzzed. A message from my father. "Proud of you." I closed my eyes and let the words sink in. Not because I'd won, but because I'd stopped losing. The answer everyone heard. Thanksgiving came back around whether I was ready for it or not. The calendar didn't care that my life had split cleanly in two. It didn't care that the word husband felt foreign now, like something I'd once studied in a book but never actually lived. October slid into November. Grocery stores filled with turkeys. Commercials started telling me what I should be grateful for. I almost skipped it altogether. But my father called one evening, his voice gentle and certain. "Come home," he said. "Let me cook this year." So I did. His house looked the same as always. Brick exterior, wind chimes by the door, the porch light that always stayed on a little too late. Inside it smelled like sage and butter and safety. Family filtered in slowly. My mother, my sister, cousins I hadn't seen since last year. No tension, no secrets, just warmth. When we sat down at the table, I noticed something immediately. There was an empty chair. Not for Mark. For the version of me that used to shrink to keep the peace. Dinner unfolded easily. Stories were shared. Laughs came freely. No one walked on eggshells. No one waited for the wrong thing to be said. Halfway through the meal, my uncle raised his glass. "Let's go around," he said. "Say what we're thankful for." A familiar ritual. My pulse quickened. Last year, gratitude had been performative, forced, a cover for rot underneath. This year it felt earned. When it was my turn, the table went quiet, not tense, just attentive. I took a breath. "I'm thankful," I said slowly, "for clarity." A few nods. "For learning that love isn't supposed to confuse you or make you feel small." My father met my eyes. And I continued. "For the courage to ask questions, even when the answers change everything." No one interrupted. No one needed to. After dinner, I stood in the kitchen with my father, drying dishes the way we always had. "You know," he said, not looking at me, "I almost said something last year." My hands paused. "About the money," he continued. The way he asked. It didn't sit right. "Why didn't you?" I asked. He smiled sadly. "Because you looked like you were handling it. And because sometimes people have to see things themselves." I nodded. He was right. Later that night, curled up on the couch with a blanket and a slice of pie balanced on my knee, my phone buzzed. A notification from my bank. Deposit $50,000. I stared at the screen. Then another message. From my father. "I know you don't need it back. But I want you to start whatever's next without any shadows attached. Tears blurred my vision, not because of the money, but because it was finally clean. I used part of it to move. A smaller place. Brighter. Windows that faced east so the mornings felt intentional. I set up my own accounts. My own routines. I learned what peace felt like when it wasn't borrowed from silence. Sometimes people asked about Mark. What happened? They'd say carefully. I never gave details. I just said. I listened when the truth tried to speak. That was enough. The following Thanksgiving I hosted again. But this time the house was mine. The table was smaller. The guest list shorter. The food wasn't perfect. And none of that mattered. As we sat down, someone asked casually, "Hey, can you pass the gravy?" I smiled and slid it across. No freezing. No fear. Just dinner. Because the question that once shattered everything had already been answered. Not out loud, but completely.